Welcome everyone to our weekly discussion of Darkei Gemara. We finished the first chapter, and now the Rabbi Confronton is going to give us 7 basic drachim to use whenever we're learning Gemara. Okay, these are 7 eco points that one should always keep in mind when learning a text. The first one, he told us, was always focus on who is the proponent of the idea and who is attacking him. And define very carefully who is asking the kasha or the question, who is responding to it by giving it teretz. And at this point, what we did was we went back to Derek Tefunos and we said, here's one of the places where Derek Tefunos again is complete and organized. And he told us there's 7 functions with their subcategories, and that gives us a very clear picture of how to label the opponent and proponent in any debate. So that's really the first move, is to make sure of the scorecard. And the Yitzhak Confronton adds that just also make sure the level of person should be considered 2 Tanayim, 2 Amoraim, or Rav and Talmud. Talmud should follow the Rav usually, and we shouldn't have any break. We shouldn't have any mix between Tanas and Amoraim. They're 2 different levels, 2 different periods completely, and the Amoraim don't fight with the Tanoim. They may fight with each other, but the Tanoim can fight with each other all the time. Okay, so that's the first move, which is the scorecard. Who are they? What's their position? Tana, Amora, Rav, Talmud, and what are they doing? What are their functions? Which we explained in great detail in Derek Tefunos. And the last thing he says is always remember their names, okay, and make sure that when you have a long shakla make sure that you're keeping the shakla straight. That's why I do the visual logic, because it helps you keep track of kasha, teretz up, kasha all, teretz, kasha all down, coming back again. So it keeps you very visually on track of who's asking, who's responding, if anyone switched in the middle, changed his position, varied the position, what's the new position. That's why we do the visual logic. Okay. The second move was, as I mentioned, really one of the most dramatic chidushim of this book, which is the idea of Kiddush. Okay. He says here, the gray is just my additions. He's going to define the 3 parts of a very important move in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Peshita Mike Kamashman, Mayaslesh Me'inan, Zil Kori Be Rav. Then that's the kasha. It always gives a teretz, Mahu the same as Hakodai the Chamina, and then it attacks it says, well, if that Havamina was so good, so why don't you keep it, forcing a hechlach. That's a sorti, or whatever that's a fancy word for it, but that's a move that we see constantly in the Gemara, but the Yitzhak Confronton pulls out of it that by the fact the Gemara says Pishita, it must mean that everything that we read cannot be something that was known information. Okay? It has to be all new information, chidush, which means you would have thought something else. So he says the following here. Okay. What is that going to be? I don't know. Let's start the number again. B'chol mamra u mamra sheyom alecha atana o amora havi mistakel mahu tzad hasafek asher haya efshel l'safek bo im lo amru shehu tzrich lo amru. Now the reason I'm going over this, I know we got up to the examples because we must get this warm up. Okay. Whenever you have any statement, you have to always know that the statement was controversial, so you have to understand what was the alternative. Okay, what was the alternative that you would have thought that forced the Tana to speak? Why would you have taken that alternative? People read what's written, but often are not aware that this step has to be done, which is what you would have thought before the Tana spoke, or the Amara, or the Chumash, in fact, he said. Now, לאחר שיודע לך הספק ותיימו, יש לך לדעת למה לא נאמר הכי. Once you understand what the alternative position was, the unstated alternative position was, then you have to ask yourself, why did the Tana or the Amara or the Chumash even, why didn't they take that alternative since it was so good? Lama lo nomer hachi, rotze lama asafakahu, why take the other side? Ulovakesh tam v'hechrach ma'asha omer Tana. So now that'll force you, once you understand that there was an alternative position, and you've built up the possibility that that was a very good position, so now you have to ask yourself, well, if that's such a good position, what is the proof that this stated information in front of us is true, that the Tana, where did he get the proof to say what he said? Now, he explains why. The Tam calls there, if Tana is saying things which are undoubtedly true, so then why does he have to say it if everybody knows it's true? So it doesn't have to be stated. The key Omer Omer, would anyone say Zita Basi Kesef Ozav Derech Mashal Im Yefshal Histak Boshi Dorache? Would anyone tell you that this ring is silver or gold if there was no other alternative? It was obviously silver and gold. It's like saying, you know, the sky is blue. So why am I telling you the sky is blue? But everyone knows the sky is blue. Hari Adiwazeh Hu Shavu Moshe Gamor. Anyone who would speak this way would just be wasting time. The Ein Lishum Bal Seichel. No Baal Seichel will ever tell you things that are obvious. We'll call Shekin the Tana Mara. So definitely no Tana Mara is ever going to make a statement unless it's a Chiddush, which means you would have had a good reason to say the opposite. Whenever we see a statement where we don't understand the alternative position, the Gemara says Peshita. This is obvious. Go and ask the children. Everybody knows this information. Which means that it's not proper to say that a Tana or a Mara would say anything that is not new information, something that you would not have thought of because you would have had an alternative to. The Yashiv HaMeishiv, so the person who's responding to this kasha has to now say, he has to tell you what the alternative position you would have taken.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Whenever it says Pshitas or my Kamashbalan, so then are we saying that seemingly there is no other position, or there is another position, it's just weaker? So what are we saying exactly? And it's therefore not relevant, and then we're just strengthening the other position, or what is it?
So we're saying like this. We're saying that there doesn't seem to be any controversy about the statement being said. Everybody knows it's true.
Right.
And if everybody knows it's true, there's no reason for the Tana to say it.
But I'm saying, and then when we give an answer, we say about the tema, are we saying something that we didn't think of before, or we just didn't think it was? I'm saying, are we going?
Oh yes, excellent. I know what you're saying. Excellent. Yes, I hear what you're saying. You're going to see from the example what you're saying is right on the ball. Yes, we're going to say that you did not consider this possibility. That's right. You did not consider this possibility. Now, why didn't you consider this possibility is another question you can ask. But when we get to the example, maybe that'll come a little clearer.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Okay. So those are those are the three moves. One is Peshita, when we see that there is no other alternative, and that this is the only, what the Tana said, or the Gemara, is the only thing you could say. So then we're forced to say, wait a minute, he couldn't be saying what you think he's saying because that's obvious. So he must be saying something else. Now, what's that something else? That's a Safadai Bechamina. Okay. Now, the third move is to say, well, if that's something else, it's such a strong position, so now what's the proof of the Tana to say what he's saying? And that's the Ema Achinami. Okay? So he says here, V'hine Hakasha Harishona, which is the Peshita, Hikusha Peshita. You're saying, wait a minute, the Tana is not saying any new information here. The second one, we say Ema Achinami, the Shnia, he is the Kusha of Lama. It's saying, wait a minute, how can you say such a big Kiddush? In other words, once we show you what the other position was, then it turns out that Tana is saying a very, very great Kiddush, so we need a hechach for him to say that. He says, they look like they're opposite. At one point, we're attacking the Tana, saying that what he's saying is obvious. And now when you tell me his Kiddush, we're saying it's so great, where's his Raya? The person says Peshita, the first position, he says it doesn't seem that there's any Chiddush in what's being said here. Why does it have to be stated? And then when we tell you the Chiddush, all of a sudden the Maksha says, Lama, hu ki nira be'enav sheyesh Chiddush kol kach b'ma'amarahu ad shikshav ein ru'ui lios kain. Then when we tell you the Chiddush, we say, wow, that's such a gigantic Chiddush. You have to produce proof. You can't say that without just, simply. Now he's going to give an example, and I hope this example should be clear. V'hine avar b'cham mashal al zeh v'im hu nimsa b'gemara pamim rabos ad ein mitzvah. Okay, I'm going to give you a lot of examples. I'm going to give you an example of this parrying back and forth, which exists in the Gemara infinitely. So here's the Gemara. The Gemara happens to be in Nida. Okay? We start off with a Brisa. The Brisa says the following. Tana Rabbanon, Isha she'en la veset, a woman that doesn't have a kavua, a settled period. It's very, very radical. Doesn't have any sense at all. So then it's a Surah L'Shamesh. The husband can't live with her because he never knows at all. It's so radical, he never knows at all when she'll go into Nida. So the first thing is the Surah L'Shamesh. The second thing is the Ein La Kasuba. She loses her Kasuba. She doesn't get any peros if she brought any. If she brought stuff into the marriage, then he continues to get the peros. Below Mizono, she doesn't get any food or bluos or old clothes when they divorce. Yaitse ulo yakse olamis. And here's the statement that we're going to key on. The husband has to divorce her. She has to be yaitse, divorced. Ve lo yakse olamis. And he can never take her back. That's the statement of Rabbi Meir. Okay, so this woman who has this radical veset has to be divorced. Not only that, he can never take her back. Yetze v'lo yakse olamis. Says that's according to Rabbi Meir. The Gemara has a kasha, the iksha aleo. Yetze v'lo yakse olamis b'shita. Really, it's on the second part. She has to be divorced, with that we understand. But what does it mean below yakse olamis? He can never remarry her. Of course he can never remarry her. She has a radical veset, and the only reason why he divorced her was because he could never live with her properly. So what's new? It's obvious that she can't go back to him. So why did the Tana have to say below yakse olamis? Is that clear? Is everyone with me?
Clear.
Yep.
Yeah? Good. Okay, that's the kasha. So you see, that's Peshita. There's no reason to say lo yakse olamis because So what does the Gemara say? Lo tzricha. No, we do need this item of lo yaksir omis. Why? Dahadra itkana. We're talking about what happens if the woman all of a sudden gets a regular period. So what would you say? Ma the same. Lahadra. Bring her back. Right? Kamash Malan. Even in such a case, Zimnin the Azla. Oh, so you say, why? That makes a good sense, right? So what's the proof that she shouldn't? Someone has speakers up a little high. I'm hearing feedback. Okay. What is the proof then? Okay, it makes an little hatra. Sure, you should take her back. So how could the Tana say not to take her back? You see, now we turn the Peshita into such a great Kiddush that we don't understand why the Tana would say that he can't take her back. You with me, Nassim? First we said what the Tana said was Peshita. Of course he can't take her back. She has an irregular vesset. So now we said, no, we're talking about a case even when she's healed, right? She has a normal vesset all of a sudden. So if that's true, and now we have such a big Kiddush, what's your raya that we should say such a thing? So now I'm going to tell you. Kamash Malan, the Zimna, the Azal, Nisva, Umitakna. The reason why you can never take her back is because sometimes she will remarry and have a normal vesset, and the original husband will say, Ilu hayiti yodea shekainhi, if I knew this woman could be healed, afilu hayan nosnili mea mana, even if you're giving me $100, whatever, lo hayasim the I never would have divorced her. So he's claiming that the only reason why he divorced her is because he thought that she could never return to a normal status of a normal vesset. The nimsa get bato ubanayim amzarim. And it'll turn out now that the whole get was on Tanai, and the original get meant nothing, and the kids will be mamzerim. So that is the big chiddush of Reb Meir. Now let's go through the steps as you wanted to in the beginning. Okay.
The only problem is the word yachzir doesn't really fit in with the teretz. V'lo yachzir olamis, unless you say it means she can't go and remarry anybody.
No. She can't remarry him at all. He has to know that when he divorces her, he can never take her back.
Yeah, and what's
Not because then we eliminate the Tanai. He can't claim if I knew she would get divorced, because we tell him, you know something, you have to divorce your wife and never take her back. You have to tell that. You have to say that. You have to say, no, I am now divorced my wife and I'm never ever going to take her back. That will eliminate this problem of the get out tonight. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, okay. In other words, he's not allowed to take her back because in a case where he doesn't take her back and she goes and marries somebody else.
He's not allowed to take her back. He has to say, Because if we would theoretically let him take her back when she got healed, theoretically, let's say the law is, yeah. So then what would happen? Say he didn't take her back. She was healed and he didn't take her back, but she now went and married someone else. Right. Now he's going to claim. He
would have never divorced her.
I would have never divorced her if I knew that she can be healed.
So it's a get pastel enough for you.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, got it.
So that's why we tell him, dear sir, when you marry this woman, you're never going to be able to take her back. That eliminates this tonight. That he may have timed it in the future. Okay? Now, what does it do? Unfortunately, though, it means that he can never take the woman back. It's a little difficult, huh? But that's another... Okay, but let's go through the steps here, because Nassan asked, what was the difference between the Peshita and the Tzricha? What switched? What concept switched between? Why have in the beginning he says first the statement looks as if it's obvious, and therefore we have a kasha. Everybody knows this obviously, and then all of a sudden we bring in the tzrichusa. What switched between the peshita and the tzrichusa? The tzrichusa turns out to be such a big chiddush, we would have never said such a thing, never thought of such a thing, right? So let's go slowly. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So maybe we're just going to address that right now, but are we also going to explain why from the Pshita, and is that in the Pshita we had no clue about this part of Ilu Haisiodea, or is
That's
that
correct.
we just rejected it?
We would have never thought of it because we would have said it doesn't make any sense. Even in the Maskana, by the way, of Reb Meir, it's a big Kiddush. Because he's going to eliminate, we now came to a position that he's going to eliminate the original husband for taking his wife back when she's healed. She doesn't get married. He's going so far. We would have never thought that.
No.
If we didn't say Peshita, we never came on to his real finish. Go ahead, please speak. I'm sorry.
Right, but it's not that we wouldn't have thought of it because we just never thought of such an idea. We thought of this idea, we rejected it as being a possibility.
100%.
Okay.
That's right. We would have rejected it. If it wasn't for the fact that the pashtus of the statement does not make sense, we would have never accepted this chiddush.
And may I ask why we would not have rejected it? Is that just based on Svar or based on the words of the of this Braisa?
In Svara. Right? I mean, this is a tremendous chiddush of Reb Meir. I mean, after all, he divorced her only because she didn't have a regular vesset. Now she's healed. We let her take her back. Reb Meir says, even in such a case, you can't take her back. Wow. Right? That's a tremendous chiddush. And it's only based on the svara of Ilu Hayisi. He's so afraid of this Motzi Shemra that the kids will be mamzerim that he's willing to do that. That's true. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense, but it's a very big chiddush. We would never have said it unless we were forced to. And the only reason we were forced to is because the alternative doesn't make any sense. It's extra words.
Aha. I hear. I'm saying he's saying go for that state in this Braisa.
That's exactly the Peshat in the Braisa.
I see the word v'lo yachzir oilamis, that's go for what the chiddush of this Braisa is.
That's right.
Aha. Meaning, we wouldn't have said it, would we not have been forced by the word of the Braisa to say it?
Right. If you just said Yotze, we would have said that's wonderful. Yotze, of course, divorce it. That makes sense. But to say below Yaksir Olamis.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, now I have it. That makes perfect sense.
I mean, in the world, I often give the Copernicus example. When you look out at the sun goes around the world. That's the Peshita. That's what happens. To say the Chiddush that it's the opposite way around, you have to bring a raya. You would never say that the earth goes around the sun. Never. And if the matter of fact, for 1,000 years, people never thought. I mean, there's an old machlokus in the Greeks. It didn't matter. But it doesn't matter. I mean, simply when your eyes tell you what the reality is, So you have to be forced. But here in the text, it's beautiful because this is an opening to real learning. I mean, most people just read what it says, and they don't understand this implication that everything that's said must be a chiddush. If someone repeats something, they say Tanachada. We learned this already, and therefore what's said has to be new information, and a new level. And we're going to go through this. The reason why it's good to stop, to dwell on this point is because this idea is going to be a central idea throughout the Sefer. When he talks about Pesukim, for instance, he's going to show us that every pasuk comes, La Fuke Isvar Chitzon. And then if there's two Pesukim, it has to now cause a limitation. It's a fantastic yesod that's coming out right here. Okay, so that's the Derek Shaney. Derek Shaney is always look for the Kiddush. Okay, and the way you test the Kiddush by saying, is it obvious or not? If it's not obvious, so you have to say, fine, I understand it's a Kiddush, but don't cook milk and meat. Okay, tremendous Kiddush. Well, why not? Okay, so let's say it's a chok, whatever you're going to answer. But I mean, that's obvious it's a Kiddush. But there's a lot of things which people think are just descriptive writing, Yotzei v'lo yachzir olamis, and only through careful investigation you see it's a Kiddush. And the Kiddush of the Kiddush is that it changes the halacha in a dramatic way, like it does here. Okay, Derek Shlishi. If there's no other questions on that. Okay. Derek Shlishi, his third principle here is Habi mishtadel ledas tam kol davar v'davar sheyom lecha hatana o amara. Always look for the reasons for things. Don't just parrot what's being said, but say, well, why is that true? What is the reason it's true? Mahu taimo, what's the reason? V'shorasho, and its source. Is it, as we learned in the Ramchal, I mean, do you have a pasuk for it? Is it common sense? Where's the source? Is it hekesh? So you always have to know the source. You have to know the reason and the source. Taimo v'shorasho hamechuyavo lo marke. Why was he forced to say what he said? What was the reason that forced him to say what he said? Okay. Ki hayodea tam hadavar hu hayodea emitis hadavar b'sivasav. A person who understands the reason for something understands the truth about its cause. There we go. Favorite cause over there. Okay. Everything that we read has to have a cause, either a pasuk or a svara. I'm going to get into that later on in the Sefer. When you know the tam, the reason for something and its source, then you have what's called a complete, true picture of the idea. It's like walking in the way with a torch in your hand. Because you know where the light is coming from. So you're able to see, if you understand the time of things and their source, you're able now to open up a lot of dark areas, which without that knowledge would just be lost to you. Now, he's going to give an example. My time of the plumbing. And he's going to give an example here from Nida again. A lot of these examples from Nida. We have a Mishnah in the beginning of Nida that says the following. It's my gray area here. Shammai says, Kol Nashim Dayan Shatan. When a woman experiences her Vesed, she feels a gush, so that's when we say that things are tumah from that point on, and not earlier, as we'll see that other people will hold. You have to go back in time. Hillel disagrees, and he says, Mi pekida lepekida va'afilu yomim rabim. No, if whenever she experiences a gush, then she has to go back to the last bedika that she did, and presume that everything between that now all the way back to that last bedika was anything she touched was tamei. We're talking about tamei and tahar items. They kept the halachas of tahars. Okay, the chachamim, they say lo k'divrei zeh v'lo k'divrei zeh ela me'es la'es. Me'es la'es mima'atet ma'atet al yedei mipikida lepikida umipikida lepikida mima'etet al yedei me'es la'es. They have they say that you either go back 24 hours or go back to the last bedika, whichever one was shorter. Okay, so we have three positions here. We're going to be discussing the first position that says that you don't have to go back. That Shammai, wherever she sees the gush, from that point on, anything that she touches tameh, and you don't go back l'mafreya, not to Hillel's position, which is all the way back to the last pedika, or to the chamim position, which is either 24 hours or the last pedika, whichever one is shorter. Okay. Now, here's that point about tam. Kamosha Talmud, my al-mashomer Shammai, the statement of Shammai, Kol nashim dayim b'sha'atan. Pasach ha-Gemara b'omer. The Gemara's first question is, my Talmud Shammai. How come Shammai is so sure that the minute that she experienced this gush, that everything before that point was tahor? Why is he nervous that maybe she wasn't sensitive enough, or it was already there, or whatever? Okay, so we always have to understand the tam. The achar sheteda zehatam. After someone tells you the reason for the halacha, you have to chipes v'doresh acher tam. You just don't accept the tam. You have to investigate that tam. V'roa im also tam maspik l'kol chelkei oseh hanoseh v'adim alo. And say, wait a minute, does this tam really cover all the cases? And he gives the continuation of the Gemara. Kamosha omru shmaisa kashechozer v'omer. Ki tam Shammai hu isha mageshes atzmo. Shammai holds a woman feels exactly the time when she goes into nida, when she has a gush. So they said, wait a minute, that's not good enough to say that everything before that was tahor. The hikshalo. Why? Because what happens if, when she sleeps, or she's a shota, the yika shota. So that it's good for some women, they may be able to know exactly when they experienced nida. But what happens if the woman was sleeping and maybe she woke up and she saw something, but she doesn't know exactly what it is? Or if she's a shota, she's a little bit confused. Okay, so what they're trying to do is test the svara. The Gemara gives the svara, but always tests the svara. You can't just give a reason and run. You have to check it out. So that's the next thing. So the two things you have to do is always look for the tam of the halacha and make sure that the tam that's given is sufficient to cover all the cases. Okay. Similarly, you'll find it says the Chachamim omrim lo k'divrei zeh v'lo k'divrei zeh elam es la'es mamayit, etc. They take the Chachamim's position is sort of a middle position. They definitely don't take Shammai's position that you can trust the woman and say everything beforehand was tahor. But they don't go all the way back to the last bedika that she did and say everything is tameh. They say, let's make, it's either 24 hours or the last bedika, whichever one is shorter. That's their position. Omer Gemara, Omer Rabba, my time to the Rabbanan. So the Rabba says, he says, well, what's the Rabbanan's reason? So they give an answer. Isha mageshes ba'atzma. The woman feels herself. So Abaye says to him, that's Rabba, or Abaye says to him, oh, I'm sorry, that's Rabba. Rabba and Abaye, not Rabba. Rabba's before. So the text that we have here is the Rabba. Yeah. So Abaye answers him, he asks Akasha, Imkain tehei daya shata. Wait a minute, you can't tell me that the Chachamim are holding the position that the Isha mageshes ba'atzma. If that's true, then that's like Shammai. So there, Rabba l'chabide l'Abaye hudaboy. So Rabbo, it says Rabbo here with a hey here. Could use the Rebbe. He was only testing Abaye. Ella, what's the real reason? It goes on. So here it seems as if a reason was thrown out. I mean that was supposed to elicit a response from Abaye. But the point is that whatever reason is given always has to be checked out. It's either sense or nonsense. It either makes sense or it doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, you have to ask. Here, the reason for the Chum can't be a Yisha Mageshes Batz. That would be, then there'd be no reason to go back in time for 24 hours or for the last check. Okay. And in the first example he gave, if that's Shammai's position, so we have other cases where it won't cover all the women. So it's not good to make such a universal principle. Point being that always look for the Tom. Don't just read things and accept them, but you have to say, why is that true? Later on, he'll tell us things are true either because of a surah or a pasuk. But you have to have a raya, as we learned also in the text. And that's why we always say, go after the time of the thing, and good things will always come out. Road Saloma, what does it mean? Sometimes we do a little movement as we go along. Okay, Road Saloma, Miadias Tam Bedava Toelis Rav. When you know the time of something, it has a great Toelis, a great result. Why? Kikashia Teideu Midaitach Tochel or all Talumos Vedin Pratim Rabin Shalo Misparshu Bishimua. He says when you know the correct time for something, then you're able to clarify, or clarify a lot of hidden halachas and a lot of particular dinim that you would never, that are not stated specifically in the Shmuel, in the Gemara. Okay, you see the Rishonim are doing that all the time. Once you pick a tam, then a whole network of cases start moving one way or the other. Now, there can be arguments about the tam, but it's critical to know the tam because then you can extend with that tam to other cases. He's going to give us an example here. Okay? At the end of Nida, we have an example, Sanabah. The Omer Rabbah, it says like this. Rabbah says, Isha lo tikbol al gabe kli cheres. Rabbah makes a statement that a woman is not allowed to go into the mikveh standing on a earthen vessel. Okay, she can't take a jar or something, you know, some women, and put it on the floor and then stand on it. Good, that's what Rabbah said. So the Rav Kahana, the time of Mishum Gezer Machatzot. So when Rav Kahana heard that statement, that she's not allowed to stand on a kli vessel, he gave a time. He says, oh, I know why that gezerah was made. Because if we don't make that gezerah, then she'll think she'll be able to go to a bathhouse and also take a mikveh there. What's the analogy? She'll say, look, what's a mikveh? A mikveh is just a bath of water. So in the bathhouse, there's also baths of water. So if we let her use the same vehicle, the same kalim that she uses in the bathhouse and the mikveh, she'll confuse things and you'll say, what's a mikveh? I don't have to go to the mikveh, I just go to the bathhouse. Just like in the mikveh, they have these clay karasim all over the place and we can stand on them. So it looks just like the bathhouse. So what's the difference? I'll go to the bathhouse the next time. Of course, the bathhouse is not a kosher mikveh. So that's what Rev Kahana thought the svara was for asering the clay cheres, because it'll make the mikveh look like the bathhouse. So then he wanted to create a new din. Or isilita shaper dummy. But a block of wood, she surely could stand on, because they never use blocks of wood in bathhouses because they float to the surface. So since the whole idea here of not allowing her to use the clay cheres was because of the gezerah, she'll confuse the mikveh with the bathhouse, so we'll take something that's never used in the bathhouse, like a block of wood, and if she wants to stand on it, no problem. Omele Rav Chanan. Rav Chanan said, nope, you got it wrong. Hasam taimamai mishum de be'ita. Now, the reason why we don't let her stand on the clay cheres is because she'll be afraid to tavel. She'll be on this shaky platform, and she'll be afraid that she'll fall off and, who knows, drown in the water or whatever. So that's why we don't let her stand on the clay cheres. So if that's true, silta nami be'ita. The same fear that she'll have standing on the clay cheres could be the same fear that she'll have standing on this little wooden plank. So therefore, she can't, according to this Tom, she can't stand on the wooden plank. Okay, so is that clear? According to, if that's exactly what he's saying, and we'll just finish it. Hari ki mitzad hatam nischayav liyos dava aser or mutter. Depending upon the Tom, other cases will turn out to be Aser or mutter. Umitzad shahayato b'tam hayato b'din. That should be, I think, behen. I think that should be b'din, but I'll look back at the original text. If you make a mistake in the tam, then you'll make a mistake in the din. Okay, so let's just go over this case again. We had a statement of Rava that a woman can't stand on a clay cheres. Now the question is, why not? Okay, so Rav Kahana thought, well, because obviously she'll mix up the clay cheres with the beit merchatz, and she'll go to the mikveh, the beit merchatz. So came along Rav Hanan and corrected him and said that's not the right tam, because according to your tam, you were going to matir her standing on a piece of wood, because they never stand on wood in the beit merchatzos. But I'm going to tell you she's asked to stand not only on cheres but also on wood. Why? Because the real time she's usher to stand on the clay cheres is because we're afraid she won't do a proper dip. She'll be unbalanced and she'll be afraid to put her head into the water. So if that's true, it doesn't matter if, and not because of machatzos, it's because of her fears that she'll fall. So if that's true, it's irrelevant whether it's a clay cheres or a wooden vessel. And even a wooden vessel would be usher. So that's his point here, that you have to look carefully at the tam, because the tam that you give to a din will have ramifications in other cases. And if you make a mistake in that tam, you can make a mistake in those other cases. And if you got the tam right, then you'll understand. So always look for the tam. That's the message here. Notice we talked about chomer. Okay, this one we talked about chomer here. It's just interesting. So if you go,
Chomer is the tam?
okay. Well, yeah, no, we're talking about the chomer of the object she's standing on, whether it's a clay cheres or whether it's wood. That's a tzura chomrius. It's one of the echoses that we discussed there in there.
Right now, I think I'm saying chomer as in, yeah, we said you had chomer.
No, kal v'chomer?
Siba.
No. Siba chomrius. That's another thing we'll get into it. But anyway, the item here, this rule is very, very important. Always ask yourself, what is the reason to something? Okay? Tell me why. Why? Now, that's a very important rule, because once you know why, as he said, you can extend to other things. If you don't understand the serious stuff. We're doing studying Isa V'Heder, and the Rishonim, once they take a position in a Gemara for the Tam, then all sorts of cases, as he said, start to line up, and it lines up differently. So it's a very, very critical rule. Okay? Let's go a little further.
Ask a question?
Yes, please, you can ask.
Say the structure of this Gemara we just said. Now,
in
the previous Gemara we said that the reason why we rejected a certain idea, or we said something was pshita, was because, and we came out with a big chiddush, was based on the text. So what is in this case, what we say, what are they arguing about? Is the Kahana, does he know about the other Sfar, but he just feels it's less mustaber? Is it that he never thought of it? What's like the back and forth over here?
I mean, you could start filling it out. It's obvious that Rav Kahana would not have said, you always start, let me start again. In a statement, you always start with dafka. That's how we always learn. Okay? It says what it says, and it means what it says, and it says only what it says. So when it says klei cheres, it means dafka klei cheres. Okay?
Right.
And nothing else. What's the nothing else? What's the other possibility? Okay, the other possibility is wood. Okay. 1 second. Yeah, exactly. I made a mistake. I retract that one again. Actually, we have to start the other way. You have klei cheres and you have wood. What's more mustavra to stand on?
Wood, I would think. People sound on klei cheres. I don't know.
Well, in Beit Machatzos, what do they stand on? We know a fact, right?
Right.
What do they stand on in Beit Machatzos? They stand on cheres.
Right.
They don't. Why do they stand on cheres and not wood?
No clue.
Probably because wood floats. Probably very hard to stand on cheres. I would guess. I'm guessing, but that's what I would guess.
Okay.
Right. It's not too. You have to keep pushing. You ever try to push wood down in a bathtub? I mean, it floats. So the klei cheres probably sinks. That is probably filled with water or something, and it's easier to. So you ask yourself, why is klei cheres asur?
Okay.
So he looks around and he says, well, where else? The common place we use klei cheres is in the bathhouse, right?
Okay.
So because that's the common reason, so I would say that's the reason why there's a gezerah, because we're afraid they're going to confuse it. Of course, they never use wood in the bathhouse. So why are we ushering klei cheres? Only because that's what comes to the mind commonly is because she'll confuse the bathhouse with the mikveh.
Okay. I'm saying, but we're saying that
Now to say be'ita, so then why didn't Rabbi say why didn't he say wood?
Right. You're saying just like because it was you didn't think of it.
By the fact he said klei cheres and not wood, if he really wanted to talk about fear, he should have talked about the wooden one, because that would have eliminated the association with the bathhouse.
Okay, but I'm saying my question is like, what's the?
So I'm trying to say it's more. Rav Kahana is more in the peshat. He's closer to the peshat, and really Rav Hanan is a little lavdafka.
I'm saying Rav Kahana thought again of both stars, but he said Lamaisa, this fits better with the words.
Exactly. Why? Because if really we were talking about Pete, he really should have talked about the wood. That would have been a bigger chiddush. It would have been a clearer chiddush to talk about. It would have been unambivalent. There would have been no doubt that we're not talking about a bathhouse at all. And then the only thing we'll be talking about is the wood.
So so then how could we accept such a teretz then?
So you're asking now, what's the force of Rav Chanan?
Right.
That's a good question. He can only be saying lav dafka, and he'll probably answer you that Rava was only talking in the common. He's talking about the common thing that people use, not not to make the deal. You know what I mean? In other words, no one really uses wood. So he's talking about the common object.
I'm saying, but what gives him the power to say such a thing?
What?
Pashtus Rav Kahana is more mustaber in the woods.
But maybe in Svara he feels he's better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He feels the Svara Be'it is a better Svara.
I have to see the Rashi. The Rashi
what does
here
Rashi
says.
say? I said that all outside. Great. Oh, here's a person who knows how to read. Go ahead.
That's right. Because so Rashi says that the Gezer Mechatzois is Shederech Mechatzois Leishev Al Gabi. It's the Ba'is Shal Adama. The derech of Mechatzois to sit on it's the Ba'is made out of Adama. The Dami L'Kli Cheres. Those it's the Ba'is of Adama are therefore similar to Kli Cheres. Therefore, V'asila Meimar Tefila Oila Bahem. And therefore they'll think that the tefillah is good. So that's the Rashi says.
That's really strange, right? Very good. Rashi says that they sit on like how are you gonna say earthen
benches
stools or something. Earthen benches, right? Stools,
it's the
benches.
A bench, I think. Really, you have in Shabbos also.
Yeah, it's a bench, right? They stay on earth benches. Yeah, exactly. Like those guys sitting in the we spoke about that. The platia.
Right. The Sratim, the platia. Right.
Yeah, exactly. The Sratim, they stand in those wooden. So they used to have these earthen benches, but that's a pretty far removed connection, isn't it? That makes it a little even further away. If we let her stand on a kli cheres, she'll think about the mikveh where they stand on
the adama
benches, on the machatzos, when they stand on the benches.
Right, and she'll think that the tefillah is good in a merchatz because just like you have an earthenware keli in a mikveh, and you have the earthenware, the klei adama of its debais and the merchatzai, so she'll think they're the same.
Right. So that's a pretty big stretch. Question is why would he say that? Because that's what the words say klei cheres. So we had to make some analogy to klei cheres around. And to say klei cheres is lav dafkan means even wood. He didn't want to say that. Okay, Beseda, now we're involved in the back and forth.
Right, now Rashi says in Silta,
yeah,
it says it's a bekas ava.
A thick piece of wood.
Wood. Kamay bechaver tovale besilta. And Yevamos Daf Samach Gimel. I'm not familiar with that word. Okay, so that's all. Oh, the Be'isa, she says.
That's what he said.
The Be'isa shlai tipo v'lai tivla tavla shapir. She's afraid she won't table properly.
Yeah, because she's on this.
Because she's on this thick piece of wood, I guess.
Okay. Anyway, this is the work, though. What you're asking to do, Nassan, is the work of asking what were the two positions. Usually the first position is the more mustafa one. I mean, the more Peshita one, and the second one is the Chiddush. So then, what's the force of the second one? So this is what you have to see in the beginning of Tfunos. He says very clearly what you have to do is take both sides and show the advantages and disadvantages of both, and that's the work. Okay, so we just did it off the top of our heads more or less, but that is the work you have to do. All right. But the important point here is that you must find the proper tam, because depending on the tam here, you're going to change halachas, and that's the point that he wants to say here. Okay? But there's nothing peshita here. I mean, there's things that are more peshita than others, but it's a balance. You're going to have a give and take. You may be better in the language, worse in the svara, better in the svara, worse in the language, and that'll be the iyun in the piece. But that's what has to be done. Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Great. As I said, this is I really enjoy this book because it's very close to learning all the time, practical learning that we do. That's it's very, very exciting. These are the basic rules. That's why I said this book, more than of all of them, is something that everyone really needs to learn as a person who's learning Gemara, because there's Yisodos here that you can't find other words. This is beyond the technical. The idea of Kiddush is way beyond the technical aspects of what we're doing in Higayon, for instance. Okay, those are all technical aspects. This is the idea of the Tana only speaks in the Kiddush. It's a wonderful idea. I mean, an opening, the fact that you have to look for the Tom because the Tom generates all other possibilities. It's a mukra. You have to know. In the debate that you have to keep track, okay, that's Baruch Hashem, we have it in Tefillah. So that's why I say all these books are complementary to each other, and as we go through them, we'll go back and forth and try to use them to fill in the gaps where the other ones are not spoken. But this one is very close to the Gemara itself. Okay, have a great week.
Okay.
Amen. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Good luck. Okay, bye-bye.